Good afternoon. Yes. So this is a live recorded conversation, but it's also participatory. So I want y'all to engage and be thinking about your questions that you will ask later because that's the point in being in front of a live audience. So I want to say thank you for all of y'all for being here in Clarksdale. Okay. In Clarksdale, Mississippi, for Clarksdale Culture Capital. That really means a lot that you decided to show up here with us today. My name is Jasmine Williams, and I am the founder of Sipp Talk Media, which is a cultural and media agency that really believes in investing and showcasing our culture, people, and our creative legacy. And I have been waiting a long time to be in this room with y'all. This is an idea that has been in my head for a few years now. So to see it actualized with other creatives and our team and like our amazing guest here is a dream come true. Yeah, give it up. And so this episode of Sip Talk Live, Creating from the Ground Up, is about what it means to nurture and build a creative economy right here in Mississippi. A lot of us in this room are creatives, and we know what it takes to stay here and build here and the challenges that come with it. And so before we go anywhere, I want to acknowledge what we are. We are in Clarksdale at Clarksdale Culture Capital, which is a 3-day festival that showcases Clarksdale culture, people, music, and really give people an insight into what Clarksdale is. A lot of us are familiar, but a lot of people aren't. And so that's what Clarksdale Culture Capital does. And I also want to thank our partners and sponsors who invested in this conversation long before it happened. Thank you so much to Travelers Hotel. This is an amazing space. And Cathead Vodka provided the beverages for our social hour and Red Bull. So make sure y'all go ahead and grab your complimentary drinks. And so let's jump into the conversation. And so there is one thing that I know for sure about Mississippi, right? Is that there is not a shortage of talent. You can walk right outside these doors. I mean, right inside this building. You can go to the corner, to the church, anywhere and find talent in Mississippi. And I think what we have what we can, have more of is systems and infrastructure and investment that says that you can stay here and do your work here, and that this economy belongs to you. And on the other hand, a lot of people are always talking about the brain drain or the people that leave, whether we're talking about like the great migration or creatives that leave and come back. But I want to focus today on what we have and the people who are here building and believe in a Mississippi. And I have three amazing guests who are not only, theorizing about what it means to build and stay and create in Mississippi, but who are actually on the front lines doing the work. And that's what Sip Talk Live, Created from the Ground Up, is about. And so introducing Brittany Bright is the founder and CEO of the Influencer League, an ed tech and talent platform equipping diverse creators with the tools to build profitable, sustainable businesses. With over a decade of experience in social media, influencer marketing, and talent management, Brittany has worked on campaigns with major brands like Walmart, Target, Procter& and Gamble, always with a strategy first, equity first approach. She's best known for her co-authoring. She's best known for co-authoring the 2021 Time to Face the Influencer Pay Gap study, and for championing access, education, and fair compensation for creators of color. From the Mississippi Gulf Coast to global recognition, Brittany blends hands-on industry knowledge with a passion for systems, sustainability, and scaling with purpose. Brittany Bright. And next we have Brandi Turner, who is the co-founder and co-director for Mississippi Center for Cultural Production, otherwise known as MCCP, best known as Sip Culture, in Utica, Mississippi. MCCP, an organization taking a place-based approach to holistic community development through agriculture, cultural production, and community engagement. As a partner in the design of Sip Culture's programming, Brandi is also the lead coordinator of Sip Culture events and programming. Formerly the managing director of TWA Consulting, a company that provided services and creative consulting for artists looking to strengthen their work in arts and culture. Currently a member of Deja Enterprises, COPA Steering Committee, alternate Roots member, and serves as a board member of Art of the Rural Artists Committees Alliance and the Utica Institute Museum. Through nurturing, Brandi has developed an inseparable love for the culinary arts. Aiding as a tool in her community engagement and artistic practices, she is also a freelance makeup artist with an extensive career in cosmetic sales, management, and event coordination. Raised by proud Motown natives, Detroit, Michigan, in the South, LA, and Mississippi, she became a student of dance for 15 years. Brandi lives in Utica, Mississippi with her husband, Carlton Turner, and their three children, Jonathan, Jana, and Tristan. Give it up. We got two dancers, two dancers. Rebecca Pleasant Patterson is a nonprofit leader, arts advocate, professional dancer, choreographer, and executive director of Griot Arts in Clarksdale, Mississippi. Her career spans professional performances, international education, refugee services, workforce development, and community-based arts leadership. Before entering nonprofit leadership, Rebecca performed professionally with organizations including the Metropolitan Opera and appeared in productions such as Netflix Raising Dion and YouTube Red Step Up High Water. She also choreographed for Aloe Black's Super Bowl pregame show. Her social impact includes leadership and programmatic roles with organizations such as Refugee Coffee Company, SIE Solutions, through Aspire Africa in partnership with the African Leadership University in Rwanda. Today, Rebecca leads Griot Arts' effort to create pathways for youth and the broader community through arts education, workforce development, and creative programming. She is also helping lead the transformation of Clarksdale's historic Paramount Theater into a multidisciplinary arts and cultural hub. Her work is grounded in the belief that thriving communities are built by recognizing, investing in, and amplifying the talent, creativity, and cultural richness that already exists within them. Give it up for our panelists. And like I mentioned earlier, this conversation is filmed and it will be shared, which means what happens in this room will have a life beyond this room. So I want you to be present. I want you to listen. And I also want you to think about the questions that are drumming up for you and your creative path. Welcome to Sipp Talk Live, creating from the ground up.
Thank you.
Okay. So we're in Clarksdale, Mississippi, and the theme of Clarksdale Culture Capital is the return. And so the first question I want to start with, I always talk to my friends about how, because of our level of expertise and like our passion and drive, we could literally be anywhere in the world. And so I want y'all to answer, why Mississippi? Why do you choose to ground your work in this place and in your community specifically?
Okay, I'll jump out there. Um, so, why Mississippi? And, interesting that I decided to answer this question because you heard from my bio. I have roots in Detroit, but then that means you all know that my family is part of the Great Migration. So it is no wonder that I have gravitated towards being in the South. But Mississippi has felt like home from the moment that I arrived here, and I arrived here as a young teenager. Actually celebrated my first teenage birthday in Mississippi, and so it feels like home. It has roots that run deep and that connect to this migration that my family was a part of. And so there's possibilities that are endless here. And I think a lot of times it's because people don't recognize the richness that exists here in Mississippi.
For me, I had twin cousins that live here. So my family's from here. I grew up in Atlanta, born in California. And so I grew up coming back and forth to Mississippi, to Clarksdale every year. My dad's from Jackson, so we'll just go to Clarksdale and go right down to Jackson and then go right 20 back down to Atlanta every summer. In fact, I always said that I would never move here. Like, this is one place in the world I will never live. I always kind of consider in some way, I don't know, I don't even know why. I just say, you know what, I am above this place. I'm not going to do it. It's just all the big town mentality. I would never live here, right? And so I had, there was this one summer that I was visiting my mom family, and I stumbled across Meraki downtown. And I thought, like, okay, this is different. This seems like it's something that there's opportunity here, right? And so I kept on coming back. I kept on, like, having conversations with them. And then eventually they said, well, you know, there is a job offer here. And I don't know if you've ever considered moving to Mississippi. And at the time I was like, well, I have my husband, my son, I don't know, maybe not. But in my mind, I was like, this could happen. Now, backstory to all of this, I have twin cousins. They were 21 and 22 at the time. One of my cousins had just passed when she was 21 years old. Lived here, grew up here, went to school here, and every time we would have, like, reunions, I would always hear these ideas generating on the inside of them. You know, they wanted to open up a vegan restaurant, they wanted to do this and to do that, and every time I would see them the next summer, it's almost as if the needle didn't move. They were still talking about the same dream and same vision. And so a year before I was offered the position to come here, one of them died. And then when I was offered the position, I started coming up here just to have some more conversations, and that was in November. That Thanksgiving, one of my cousins visited me in Atlanta for Thanksgiving. The next day, she passed away. And so both cousins passed away. And at that point, I realized something had to happen, because it doesn't make any sense that they're young people that they have so much dream, so much passion, so many ideas, and they were never able to connect the dots. And so when I was moving here, I heard two different things from two different parts of the community. From one part, I heard, oh, it's a vortex. It just draws you in. You know, we love being here. But then on the other side, I heard, it's a trap. Don't do it. You're throwing away your whole life. There's nothing here for you. And those two narratives showed me that something had to be done, because there's kids dying with opportunity and with ideas in their minds, and there's people that are saying that there's a lot of opportunities here. Something's not connecting. And so for me, and my husband's just as crazy as I am, because we uprooted our lives in Atlanta and came here. And so that's why it's more of I feel like it's a calling. I feel like it's something that people gave from this community for me to go up to Alvin Ailey sometimes. Miss Bertha Blackburn gave to me to go up to New York. And so it's almost like the seed that they planted in me, it's coming back. It's growing back here. And so, yeah, it was a sense of just, yeah, it needed to happen.
So I'll start. I tell people all the time that Mississippi has an ancestral hold on me. I was born and raised in Mississippi on the Gulf Coast. And when I was a kid, I had a huge imagination. Anything that I could create, whether it was coloring and art or acting or just whatever, I wanted to do it. And I told myself I always wanted to live in New York City. I had never been in New York City. I had never left Mississippi. And 11th grade came, and I got the opportunity to go to New York City with my theater group. And I was so excited. My mom, she got me all prepared, and she sent me on the way, and we flew to New York, and we got there. And it was as magical as I thought it was. It was also incredibly loud. It was incredibly fast. Everybody was like, nobody wants to say hi. It just was not what I was used to. I was in 11th grade at the time, so I knew my life. I knew my community. I knew my family. I knew what I liked by then. And so when I got to New York, it was fun, but I was ready to go home. After a few days, I'm like, okay, I need to leave now. This is a lot. And so I got back home, things kind of changed. Career path changed a little bit. I went from theater to wanting to do broadcast journalism. Growing up wanting to be in broadcast journalism, you hear about Oprah and Robin Roberts and those women who've paved the way for Black broadcasters, Black women broadcasters. And I ended up getting accepted at the University of Mississippi. And I really, really wanted to go to FAMU like my mom. But I wanted to be near my mom, and I didn't want to move too far from home. So staying in Mississippi was a non-negotiable for me. I made that choice. And while I was at Ole Miss, I did lots of internships. I traveled, did internships in Arkansas. I was just trying my best to build the career that I wanted by the time I graduated. So I was doing interviews senior year in Chicago. I did interviews in Memphis. I was just trying to find a job. The goal was go to school, get a job. Sure enough, the job that I secured was in Gulfport, Mississippi. So I wasn't going anywhere. I graduated college and went right back home to this advertising agency. And while I was at this advertising agency, shortly after I started there, I gave birth to my first son. I was 23 years old, and I was actually telling Brandi that that point was an intersection between motherhood, starting a new career, and just entering into adulthood. And I was dealing with all of those things at 23, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to navigate it. So I did what I do best, and that's write. So I started a blog, and as I was blogging, I was already doing professional work with the hospitals down there, casinos, hotels, you name it. We were doing big work in advertising, PR, and social media. And that was around the time I was doing a lot of blogging, and I was coming up with influencers. Like, influencers are this thing. They're these people on YouTube. They're coming over to Instagram. They're making money. What is this thing that I've never heard about? It's marketing, but I'm not familiar with it. And so as I started learning more about influencers, I went to my manager and I asked her, I'm like, why does Mississippi not have influencers? Like, what do we do about that? And she was basically like, it's just not a thing here. It's not a thing. And so at that point in time, I was deep into growing my community online and doing a lot of education on social media for small businesses and individuals who wanted to build a personal brand. And I was becoming like hyper focused on learning the business of being an influencer. And so I reached out to HR at the agency that I interned at in Northwest Arkansas. And I'm like, nobody down here knows anything about influencers. And it's so frustrating because nobody can help me. And I was like, can you help me? Is there anything you can tell me? And she's like, well, actually, we're looking for someone. We're looking for an influencer marketing coordinator to come do work for Walmart and Sam's Club in Northwest Arkansas. So you have to come here, 10 hours away from home. Again, a non-negotiable, but on the flip side, because I needed money, we needed money, and I wanted to pursue this new venture somewhere that I've never lived before. And so we packed up and we moved 10 hours to Northwest Arkansas. And that is where I got my start in influencer marketing and really started building up the educational side of the business of influencing. And the pandemic hit, I lost my job, and I was doing really well at that time just with the Influencer League and being a strategist and a consultant for creators. But once that job was no longer the safety net, it was like, okay, why are we here? We don't have family, we don't have friends, we only moved here for the job. And so my partner, born and raised in Chicago, the question was, okay, do we go to Chicago or do we come back to Mississippi? And my son was starting kindergarten. He was going to start kindergarten that year. And I said to my partner, I know you really want to be in Chicago, and I'm all for that. If that's what you want, let's go for it. But our son is starting school. I went to the same schools my entire life, K through 12. My classmates, unfortunately, we just had her funerals this morning. We just had a classmate pass away. And, our class came together. We got a big bouquet for her arrangements. And it's just, that feels like family. You grow up with the same people. And I wanted that for my son, and I wanted that for us. And so it became, yes, let's move back to Mississippi. And so we moved back to the Gulf Coast in 2022. And to be completely honest, why Mississippi? Because this is my home. It's where my family, where my friends, where my love and heart is. And we're here for the long haul.
Clap it up. And I have had the same experience with the city. The city is a place I can go, be there for a second, but I need to come back where it's quiet. And I had that same experience of like leaving Mississippi and not really understanding, like when I left, just how much of a gold, like a golden place like Mississippi is. I think that's a lot of artists, experience where it's like not really knowing the value of home until you leave and you see exactly what other people are doing. And it's like, oh, y'all not nothing like my people.
I don't like this.
That part.
The food's not that great either.
Y'all not doing it like my people down in Mississippi, so I can go back home. And I was in Austin, Texas, and I began to, I, I think the craziest thing is like growing up in Mississippi, and I feel like I kind of grew up in a, it's almost like a vacuum where you're around like all of these amazing people and amazing artists, but without context, because everybody is amazing and everybody is creative. You kind of like grow up seeing it as a norm. You take it for granted. And so being in Austin and learning more about Mississippi as a cultural giant in like American culture and like global culture, I fell in love with home, like away from home. And so I was like, I'm just gonna start a platform where people can learn about Mississippi, the things that I'm learning. And that's what birthed Sipp Talk, and that's what brought me home. I had no idea what it would mean to have a business, what it would mean to share Mississippi with Mississippi. But that was like my same, inkling to like move home and share this with people that get it. And so all of y'all are talking about this creator like economy. We keep throwing that word around. And so growing up, I never knew that I could be a creative and that it could pay me. Like I just thought I could go to Ole Miss, be a pharmacist. Biology showed me very quickly she's not a pharmacist. So I didn't know that this was an option. Like what we're doing is an option. And so I want to know, how do y'all define the work that you're doing? And who are you doing it for? And like how does that fit into a creator economy in Mississippi?
I'll jump in. So one area that comes to mind first is our after school program. And a lot of people kind of reduce us down to, oh, we're just taking care of kids. It's a daycare, they kind of pop in and pop out. But that's not the case at all. Our goal is, if you're going to spend your time here, you're going to get a skill. We're going to sharpen that skill. And when you leave out and go to college or do whatever you're going to do, you're going to be able to use this to either get into school. You'll be able to maybe teach at a dance studio or to teach at a music studio, maybe do a gig, but you have a tool. It gives you options. And so that's our mindset. And so we have dance classes. We have a visual arts department where kids can come in and they can perfect their skill in visual arts or in dance and see what pathway it takes them to. We always try to expose them to different colleges or to different job opportunities in those art fields as well. And so we're not saying stay here. We know that if we give them the opportunity to get more training, to connect the dots, to bridge, that they will ultimately come back here, that it'll grow back here. And so we want to connect them so then they can come back here and we can kind of have that exchange of knowledge and wisdom that you get from just being exposed to different places. And so that's one of our main ideas in our after school program. So that's what we're doing to do that. And also a lot of people look at just Meraki as our workforce development program, but workforce development starts at 3, right? And so when you're in those dance classes or in those visual arts classes, you got to bring your tools, you got to come, you got to perfect, you got to process. That's what the arts is best at. It's best at process. It doesn't always have to be performative. So when you are going through a process and you fail and then you get back in it and you try again and you get inspired, and like that is a process, and that does something more to you than anything can. And so we're providing the students 3 to 18 that process, that place.
Very tangible work. And I want to ask you, Brandi, in your work that you do with Sipp Culture, how does arts food systems, agriculture, and storytelling work together to create economic sustainability. And why does that combination matter?
So let me share just a little bit because some of the questions that you're asking, the why Mississippi, and some of the things you all have lifted up has been, you've gone to experience other places. And for me, you heard me mention Detroit and you mentioned, New Orleans. When I first moved to Mississippi from New Orleans, I missed it. I longed to for that feeling that you get when you think of New Orleans, and so I was always trying to get back to like that urban center, the energy that you feel, and I began to realize that when I would go to those places that I missed being in Mississippi. And I don't mean that I moved to those places. I would go visit, and it was just like what you said in New York. It's like, oh, I can't wait to get back, you know, home. And I realized, oh, I love this place. I knew that it was the kind of place that I wanted to raise my family. But what I also was holding was that a lot of the resources that you can find in urban spaces are not readily available and accessible in Mississippi, and particularly in the more rural spaces. All of Mississippi is rural, really, but in those really rural spaces. And so, what began to define what we are building, I do this work with my partner, Carlton Turner. He's also the co founder with me and co director. Is what does it mean to invest in your community and create the things that you actually need? What does it mean to bring what you see somewhere else and create a space where it can be nurtured in your home? Because a lot of times the work that we do is influenced by our environments, and if you have to go to these urban spaces to to do your work, then it's being influenced by a place that's not really reflective of your home. And so that was one of the defining factors. And then what you also look at is in rural spaces, you see such a shift from a period where many decades ago, where manufacturing and an industrialized system was supporting a lot of rural spaces, and then when those things closed, then the community was beginning to lose their identity. And so you're in this place of thinking like, what is our relevance? What do we look like now, today? And you fast forward in a time where technology is now moving rapidly. So what is needed? It's accessing the things that we have already, that like innately are part of who we are. Understanding what we've done, understanding that we all have a connectivity through food. I know that the term food deserts is used quite frequently, but also in Mississippi, there is no shortage of land and landowners. So even though that we may be a really poor state, a lot of people own their land. So what does it mean to actually grow the food that you need? Some of the best conversations take place around the food table, around just being in community with each other. So that's how we see what defines the work is food being present as a part of it, because it's something that we need. It's being in community, in relationship, and nurturing a way that those conversations can take shape and form in many different ways.
Sip culture's influence and impact, you can see the real world impact. Just to say, like, we were able to be a part of Sip culture and for a fellowship. And it was a space where we could literally Sip talk as a team. We were able to. It was no pressure to have like a completed like project, but we really just needed time to create. And so Sip culture provided us a space, time, resources to just sit and think and like produce these things that are in our heads like a lot of times. And one of the models that y'all do that I really appreciate is like Ripple is of course like the fellowship, but they really believe in making these small, they seem small, moments for artists to connect to make a bigger moment. And so just to talk about some of that tangible and like full circle, Christina McField is here, and her work is here on the wall, and she was able to create that work at Sipp Culture. So yeah, we have like these really like tangible opportunities to bring art to life through the resources that y'all are able to provide and space that y'all are able to provide. So I just wanted to call that out. And so, Brittany, a lot of what your work is about recognizing where gaps are and why, especially in creator economies in your 2021 study. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about time to face the influencer pay gap and some of the stark things that stood out to you in doing that research and how you see that impacting Mississippi's creative economy. And we had a conversation before this, and you talked about like these four buckets that have to be filled in order to create a pathway for creativity. And you talked about it being financial investment, educational, technology, and legal support. And I love that you were able to make it tangible because, you know, sometimes we can get real. What are we building? Like, but like to make it very tangible, I want you to talk about that and like the work that you do.
Of course. So the time to face the pay gap study I did in partnership with MSL, came about because while I was at my agency in Northwest Arkansas, Northwest Arkansas is Walmart country. If you've ever been up there, you know Walmart was founded there, Sam's Club was founded there. It's it's not diverse. Beautiful, but not diverse. And so while I was at this agency, I came in to do the influencer work, and I was the only Black person on the team, on the influencer team. And when you're working as the only Black person on a team and you're working with creators, you tend to notice that you're selecting and you're finding creators who are in your immediate circle. So who you follow is who you pick to pay for a campaign. And so these rosters of creators doing these campaigns were incredibly white. It was maybe one Black person, one Asian person, very, very non-diverse. And so as I continued to do my work, I made a goal for myself. At least 50% of this roster needs to be Black. And as I would send out offers, I would find creators, I would send out offers, and I would say, hey, we want to work with you. Walmart wants to work with you. P&G wants to work with you on a Pampers campaign. Here's everything we need. How much is it going to be? And white influencers were charging $10,000, $20,000. Black creators, Hispanic creators, they would come back and the rate would be like $500, $1,000. The rates were drastic. However, their followings were the same, their engagement rate was the same, their content was the same. There was no difference in what they looked like in terms of the content they were sharing and the audience that they were building, but the rates were not there. So that was number one. So I would go on Instagram, I'd DM a creator, and I say, hey, girl, I'm doing the budgets. I actually have 15K for you. So when you email me back, tell me you want 15K. So I did that for the longest, right? I was just like, I hope nobody finds out. But I did that for the longest, and it came to a point where we then got into the contracting phase legally. So I would send a contract over to a white creator. Days. It would take days for them to send it back. And when they send it back, imagine my surprise when I opened it and it's just red line, red line, red line. We're not doing this. You didn't pay me for this. I'm not giving this rights away. No. So I was now in the process of negotiating contracts. I'm not an attorney. Hey, legal team, please come help me learn how to do this. And so as I continued to learn how to negotiate contracts, it then became, okay, Black creators, when I send this over, please do not sign it immediately and send it back. Read it. If you need help understanding what these clauses mean, let me know. I will walk you through it. And so the little pieces of education started building up to then I decided to found the Influencer League to teach creators, Black and brown creators globally. And so as I was doing that work, I started thinking about the data behind it. okay, I'm seeing the gaps, but I don't have actual hard data to, be the whistleblower and say, hey, there's a problem here. And so I started doing more research. I would I would look at different rates that I would remember and kind of do some compare and contrast, but there was no hard data. And so I had a really amazing friend. He's still an amazing friend now. He lives in New York, and he went to USM. He's from Alabama, went to USM, and now he's big dog in New York. I love him so much. But he worked for MSL, and we were really, really good friends. And I would always tell him, just ranting about issues that I'm having. And he's like, okay, we have funding, there's something that we can do with this. And so that's how the pay gap study came to be. And the results of the pay gap study were so staggering that it became a global study. Even though the study was only done with American creators, it's been referenced even just last week. Forbes spoke about it again. And the data that came from it wasn't just the fact that it was a 35% pay gap between Black and white influencers. It was a 29% pay gap between POC creators and white influencers. So it wasn't just a Black versus white problem. It was white creators versus everyone who's not white. The second staggering thing that came out about it was the lack of education. The fact that creators did not know how to read contracts. They didn't know how to properly price themselves. They didn't understand the difference between licensing your content and just creating a video for YouTube. And so as we started looking through more of what the results were telling us, we saw that the biggest gap wasn't just the fact that creators were undercharging, it's that they didn't know that they were undercharging. And so that's where we are now, even in 2026. We're still battling what lack of access to information and knowledge looks like. And where Mississippi stands in all of that is where Mississippi, unfortunately stands in a lot of the rankings. We're at the bottom because when you have nationally and maybe even globally Black creators who are still being undereducated and giving less opportunities, it trickles down to Mississippi, we're getting nothing. And so a lot of the work that I have been planning around the Influencer League has been, what does it look like to build this infrastructure here in Mississippi? Because I always tell people, if you can make it in Mississippi, you can make it anywhere. So, if we're going to educate Black creators and really start to close that gap, it has to start here first. Because if it starts here, it's a bottom up situation. So.
That's good. That's good. That's good.
Thank you.
That's good. And Brandi, I want to come to you and also you, Rebecca, because we're talking about these gaps because you're making it again like very tangible. And so, Brandi, I want to talk about like what are some of like the biggest funding and structural barriers that Southern Black cultural producers face in mainstream arts funding that doesn't get addressed a lot?
This is something that I actually speak about quite a bit when a question is framed this way. And it's something that we also really tend to focus on when we are funding artists in the South primarily, is having an opportunity, when you're talking about structural funding, that artists in the South have an ability to have unrestricted funding. Because what happens is as an artist, your creativity can be stifled because you're boxed into these particular guidelines. And, there's a lot of reservations, particularly with people of color, artists of color, that show up that there's a lack of trust that we will do the work that needs to be done if you move these boundaries. And so structurally, that is a problem, because what we have found is that when you create the space for people to feel whole, to show up, not necessarily bringing all of their challenges, but they're able to have access to resources that allow them to move a little more freely, then the creativity flourishes. So I think that that's one of the greatest structural challenges is having restricted funding and not allowing that artist to receive this funding and do as they need to do within the timeline, still meeting, particular goals, but allow them that breath, that space to do that.
Yeah, and also to that, at the institutional level, also, if the organization that's delivering that funding is so restricted in how they can use the funding. When they do give it to an artist, it is hard because then at the institutional level, it's so restricted. And so, yes, even when it comes to like us as a nonprofit, when we get funding, we need it to be unrestricted so we can kind of make the call for what needs to happen with that funding at the local level. And so, yes, all the way through, that needs to be the case.
And I think I want to add to that with especially with the timelines. We see that a lot in influencer work where 5 years ago, campaign timelines were months in advance, whereas now daily, literally creator working on a campaign. I can't say the brand name. I wish I could have working on a campaign right now. And he was asked to turn in his concepts that he's going to create in less than 24 hours. And so we're seeing the industry move faster than it should be because you're asking for creators to create freely. And it's moving too fast. And I feel like Mississippi is a wonderful infrastructure for that because we're so slow by design and we can appreciate that. It's even on, the institutional level when you work with certain creators, give them time, give them space to breathe because that's their baseline. That's what we're used to. When you want the best work, you have to give it time and let it breathe. Also, why are we moving so fast? Why are you not planning farther in advance so that I can have the time to create? But we are seeing a lot of the same problems in the creator economy.
Yeah. And doing like producer work. I feel like in Mississippi, especially in like TV and film, that would be like a really big disconnect because these big brands, they come down, Netflix want to shoot something and they want to do it fast, but people here do not care about your Netflix.
And that's what makes us beautiful, though.
That's what I'm saying. Do not care about who you got in the back of the Sprinter van. We do not care. But I think, like you said, but I think that's like one of the beautiful things about Mississippi because it has to be rooted in community. And the only way you can get things produced and done in Mississippi, it has to be through community. And Brandi, I think that going straight into that, one thing that Sipp culture is about is like, I have a question in how do you build a creative economy that belongs to community and not just like an individual brand? Because I think that is the essence of like Mississippi. And so, what do you think that looks like, or can you tell us about the work that y'all do at Sipp Culture and how you make sure that happens?
I have a little bit to share about that one.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of fundamental things that have to be present. You're talking about creating something in your community. You have to do it with your community, and that also reflects Mississippi because of the pacing of how that moves. But people need to see themselves in it. They need to hear their voices in it, and not in a way that's extractive. And so one of the things that is really a part of our work when it talks about story, I mean, people can come in and do interviews and try to acquire information. But if someone else is telling your story, then that has a very different impact on where it actually lives. So the stories that come from our community, those also need to be the voices that are sharing those stories and that we own those stories. They live with us. And so, I think that what that really also means is that you have to have as many people at the table, and sometimes it involves having very difficult conversations, and people have to be ready for it. And that's actually a muscle that needs to be built, and that takes time to build that muscle. To me, I mean, because we can talk as we are right now, but what does it also mean to be making decisions together? That's the hard part.
Having the language.
Right? We can, we can have exactly the language to be able to have a healthy conversation, but also be able to identify what are the goals, what are the things that we're wanting to do in our community, and then how do we get there and stay at the table to see that thing through. So I think that's what's really essential is having those conversations and continuing to, you and I were talking, Rebecca, earlier. We were just talking about, just to share, like, another tenet of Sipp culture is community engaged design. And so we have, that has just been how we have moved, and it's informed our work through all iterations. But sometimes when you're starting something, you only have so many people that come to the table because they're not really quite sure what you do or if they know you or trust you. Right. So you're only getting a couple of people that's showing up. But what does it mean then when people start to say that, oh, you're still around, you're moving with some integrity. Now I'm actually a little bit curious. So now you need to continue to extend that invitation for more people to come and be a part of the conversation. So that way it's reflecting the true voice of the community.
Yeah. No, that's real. And I think it was a wake-up call working with y'all because it's like, I have this great idea. And they're like, okay.
We hear that all the time. I got an idea. Like, everybody got ideas.
So they like, but what the community want? And I'm like, oh. And so I love that y'all have like real strategy and what it means to have that conversation with community. And I think y'all were like the first organization that made me think about what does that look like to have conversation with community first before you build something. And so...
Because who are you building it for?
Who are you building? It got to be for you.
If you're building it for the community, it has to involve them.
It has to involve them. And so it has to be a very intentional process. And I do want to talk a little bit more about like that collaboration, because I think that what you're speaking about is the tension that exists in collaborating and in working with community. And so I want to know, when you're collaborating with new people, new organizations, how do y'all make sure that the integrity of what you're building stays intact without being diluted or, but still having like trust and those boundaries like in place?
Honestly, for me, I just recently started building my team a couple years ago. For the first 5 years of the Influencer League, I primarily did everything on my own because it was my brainchild. I knew how I wanted to go. I knew I was in a unique position between brand and creator, that I was the bridge at that time. But it became, personally, how do I continue to build this thing far beyond myself? And what does it look like to bring on a team to help me do that? And people ask me about team building all the time. And to be completely honest, I am intuitive. I follow my heart. I trust my gut, but also soft skills. I look for soft skills in people because those are the things you can't teach. Those are the things you were supposed to learn when you were 3, 4, 5 years old. You're learning soft skills because that's going to take you through your entire career and just life in general. So I look for those people who have really strong soft skills, like having difficult conversations. Can we have them without ego? Can we have them without hurt feelings? Can we have them to move forward? Are we arguing just to argue, or are we arguing to move forward? What does that look like? Not being out for yourself and wanting to be a part of something bigger, but also shared vision. When I'm speaking to people and I have a vision and I can't properly articulate what that vision is, but the other person just gets it, like they know because they have the same vision or similar and they just feel it. It's like, I know that those are the people with their soft skills, with, having a shared vision and having shared goals, as well as everyone on my team has their own business too. We're all freelancers. None of us are full time. We're still trying to make money. And so a lot of the people that I work with also have their own businesses. So it's shared resources. What do I have that I can give you? What do you have that you can give me? And how do we, honor each other in that process? And so that's what building with community and team building and building for other people looks like.
For us at Griot, this is something that we always hold in the tension, right? This is something, I think, why lots of marriages, end up in divorce sometimes, because it's the communication, or either friendships, or even like parent relationships. Like communication is hard, partnership is hard, collaboration, it's just hard. And so naming that gives us the ability to say, okay, this is something that is a hard across the board. How do we enter into collaborations and conversations knowing that it's hard, communicating that across the table so that we both understand that this is iterative, we are learning, we are growing, we will get it wrong, but when we do, let's commit to the same thing. And so having the honest conversations like, hey, we don't know all the details, but we're going to be learning together. And setting that goal from the very beginning, it always helps us out. But we don't have, because every single person is very different. And so we have to understand the needs and how to work with everyone. And so it has to be iterative. And so we just go in with the goal and we communicate, hey, we're human, we're learning. If you communicate and we communicate, it'll work. But if that breaks down, it probably won't work. And so setting that goal from the very beginning helps us out.
I would say, in addition to what both of you have lifted up, one of the things I heard you mention was like, is taking ego out of the situation. And we have to be really honest with ourselves about that and recognize the kind of environment that we've all grown up in that is very capitalistic, which means, in order for you to achieve that, sometimes that means you're leaving folks behind or someone is at the bottom. And so you have to stay true to your values. And I think also we might put a lot of pressure on ourselves about what it means to collaborate. So, it's kind of like there's levels to collaboration. And you don't always have to be so immersed that you're doing the whole thing together. But there's things that, just sitting here in the panel and people that I've had an opportunity to meet today that I can find like connecting points. In ways that we might be able to collaborate on a certain aspect that, benefits our values and our work. So that way we're not compromising that, because for us, that is a non-negotiable. We're very clear about our values and we work. We work to try to uphold those. So I think when you're talking about collaboration, it can take shape in many forms, and we need to begin to look at collaboration from the small and connecting dots to what it means to do really big bodies of work together.
And in order for that to take place, one of the things I've also been working on internally with the platform is tangible processes and systems. The fact that we're building a team and we're wanting to collab, whether, someone wants to barter with us or someone, sends us an invoice and we send out invoices, whether we're just exchanging, revenue or whatever, it's the processes and systems. So when you have a small, mighty piece to hand to someone to collaborate with, they understand, okay, here's what communication looks like across the board, because you're working with so many people, especially when you have a team that works asynchronously. Everybody's on different time zones. I have team members in Jamaica. I've worked with people in Paris and London. So it's like, what does communication look like when someone's asleep and someone else is burning the midnight oil? What does it look like to share team updates on a regular basis? How do we stay organized internally so that the work that we put out actually gets put out and we're not just talking about ideas all day? And, once the job is done, okay, this was a quick contract. You did great work. I'd love to have you back. And you just fold them back into the processes. So it's like, as long as that foundation of how the company, the platform, the nonprofit works internally, I feel like that makes collaboration a lot easier as well.
What's interesting for me is also like when it's so new that none of those processes haven't been created yet. And how do you navigate that space? And that's kind of where we're learning to be flexible, because a lot of stuff, it's like we're just kind of doing from the ground up. Like even this a festival here, like it's from the ground up. And a lot of stuff that I had a chance to partner with Tyler on, it's been from the ground up.
Yeah.
Haven't done it before. And we're just like, hey, I
figure
trust
it out
you.
as we go,
We
yeah.
trust you. Like we're good. All right, we're gonna start to figure it out. But then it does become a point when, okay, now we got to create some systems to this.
Who's the
some
best
bones, some
operational
marrow.
brain here to help us plug
exactly.
in?
But there's some parts to it, right? There's a time when there's not a lot of systems, not a lot of things there, but then it becomes a time where you have to move to that point so you can keep on going further. And that's the part where you have to be flexible and you have to be listening, you have to be sensitive. And so that's what I've been learning. Yeah.
Okay, so this is big dream. Okay. So in the next 10 years, what does in thinking about your respective places in building and helping shaping Mississippi's creative economy, what does our creative economy look like in the next 10 years? Or what do you want the next generation of Mississippi creatives to have that you did not have?
Hmm. I would love I wish that when I was really getting into this education, someone who understands the creator economy landscape from, pricing, because we have creators making seven figures annually. Why Mississippi creators can do that as well. So the education on what that looks like. To be completely honest, becoming a content creator and influencer, a lot of people undervalue it. It's basically like going to college. You are basically freshman, sophomore, junior, senior year. Every year that education is compounding as you build your career. But the second thing that I really like 10 years from now, with Mississippi and the culture it has and the rich history and the community that's here, I don't see creators necessarily wanting to say, hey, I want to, become a creator and move away and go to New York or LA or wherever. It's small businesses partnering with creators, larger businesses down here in Mississippi partnering creators. Like we can build that infrastructure just inside the state of Mississippi. Other states are doing it. Mississippi can do that as well. And it's not just partnering for, trade or barter or, I'll give you a free meal if you come into my restaurant. The fact that we can pull the data, look at the numbers, understand return on investment, understand return on ad spend, like actually digging into the numbers and data, we can teach both businesses and creators how to effectively partner together. Because if I'm not mistaken, the statistics are for every dollar that a brand spends on influencer marketing, they earn like $6 back. We can do that here too.
So many thoughts ran through my head, but one of our sayings here at Griot is "You belong here." And with us building a new center here in the heart of Clarksville, where not everyone felt as if they were wanted and that they belong, and so my dream is that young folks, creatives, will have a sense through the funding that's provided, through the system, through the ecosystem that is here, that they belong here. They get a sense of that. And that narrative that I heard when I was going to move here from family members and from other people saying, oh, it's a trap, don't do it, that will change. That the narrative would be, oh, no, you need to come here because it's connected. My, I dream that there's a more connected Mississippi where, Clarksville cannot survive by itself on an island, right? The reason why Clarksville was even created is because of the waterways, right? Is the train tracks, right? We have to build more connections with what we're doing in Mississippi so then we can be able to glean from each other. And so a more connected Mississippi. So when I have an artist that want to do more, I can just send them straight down to Sipp Coach, right? We can kind of send people different places and grow each other. So that's my dream.
The dream for me is that more people will see themselves as creatives, that we will not look externally to be validated as creatives, and that that Sipp culture can be maybe a learning model. Learn what we did well, learn the things that we didn't do well, learn alongside us as we're learning, um, to 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 help to create more spaces. When people have their own dreams and ideas, they need places for those things to be nurtured. They need places for that to go, and so I would like to see more spaces that allow people to be able to dream and create together.
Those are amazing dreams. And I think that they all align because that is also like my dream for Mississippi is that creators and builders and entrepreneurs and artists have what they need to be able to stay here and not only stay here but not have to keep reinventing a wheel because I feel like that's what kind of breaks down the creativity is having to feel like you have to build the system, build the venue, build everything from the ground up. So
With
my
lack
dream,
of funding.
without funding, literally build it. And I think so much of what we do, we're we're proud of making something from nothing, but I want something.
A little bit, just a little bit. That's
Right.
all I need.
Like
And we
just
can
a little
say
bit.
that.
Yeah.
Just a little bit. So I do think that we are aligned, and we're in a room that lets us know that there are creators, there are builders, there are people who are here and invested in Mississippi.